There was a very beautiful book written on the descents of Justice Syed Mahmood, who was one of the very distinguished judges of the Allahabad High Court. The law in the British era was that if the accused was not present before the judge, it was yet open to the judge to decide the criminal appeal in the absence of the accused by reading the papers themselves. We then reinterpreted our criminal procedure code before the right of a hearing became a part of our law in the criminal procedure code of 1973 by interpreting it to mean that there can be no justice to the accused unless the accused is personally heard by the judge. And you cannot condemn a person to the gallows or for any term of imprisonment unless that person is heard. So we have changed through a process of creative interpretation, the colonial model, as it were, and now it is for us as succeeding generations to use the benefit of technology and creative interpretation to reach out to our citizens. As part of our mission in the e-courts project, we are on the anvil now in the Supreme Court of making e-filing universal. Every case would be filed in the e-filing mode. Our e-filing module is undergoing a security audit, but we will have to train our own lawyers, our law clerks, the clerks of the lawyers, because there is an internet divide and we don't want anyone to be left behind in the advent of technology. We have launched into a very ambitious scheme for digitizing records across India in all our courts. We've already started live streaming court proceedings. Our Constitution bench hearings in the Supreme Court are live streamed. The benefit of live streaming is to reach out to citizens. On the flip side, citizens will realize how boring the processes of hearings in the court can be. But in telling them of how boring our work sometimes can be, we are sending out a message to our citizens that in the smallest cases which we decide, of somebody's pension, of somebody's job, of somebody's disability compensation, we take every little case seriously. And that sense which emerges therefore from the use of greater technology in terms of live streaming is to remind our citizens that we exist for you and to promote access to justice and to realize access to justice by involving the citizens in the participatory role as people for whom justice is truly intended. There are 30,000 judgments of the Supreme Court, 34,000 judgments of the Supreme Court since 1950. Each of these judgments was available in English in the official report, which is the Supreme Court report, which was woefully behind time. The result was that all the judgments of the Supreme Court were put across to the legal profession by private publishers who would use our judgments to create beautiful headnotes and then offer them for sale to our citizens. I have no difficulty with it because they did a great job. I've used those reports both as a lawyer as well as a judge. But what we have done recently is to digitize the entire 34,000 judgments of the Supreme Court. We've provided a free text facility, a search facility, and each of these 34,000 judgments is now available free of charge for citizens across India. You have law colleges in India which have no resources to purchase law reports. That's the harsh reality of India. We have at one end the brilliance of the national law schools, which sustain all the top law firms in the country, but we also have the base of the pyramid, where there are no books or no law reports. They have no resources. Now, there is, I believe, a duty on all of us as members of the profession to reach out to them, because unless we reach out to citizens who are at the base of the pyramid, our mission as leaders of the profession would not really be fulfilled. And it is in that spirit that I mention these facets to all of you, to give you a sense of being sensitive to the issues which the large base of the profession faces. Apart from the E-Supreme Court reports, we've launched a new project to translate every one of our 34,000 judgments in every Indian language which is recognized by the Constitution. Already close to 3,000 judgments have been translated into Hindi, and these have been made available to our citizens. Now, our mission to translate judgments is guided by one object, that you must allow citizens who don't know English, and certainly not legalese English that we write and speak of in the courts, talking of ejusdem generis and actus curiae and neminem gravibit and so on and so forth. We have to allow our citizens to understand the work which we do in a language which is known to them. And we are using artificial intelligence and machine learning through a product which is being developed by the IIT, the Indian Institute of Technology at Madras, for the purpose of disseminating our judgments. Just last week, in the course of a Constitution bench hearing, we had real-time transcription of the arguments which were made by lawyers on all sides, including the learned Solicitor General. So the arguments which were made before the Constitution bench were reflected on a screen in the court real time. By the end of the day, the arguments were cleaned up, not cleaned out, but cleaned up. And then once the lawyers had said that the arguments were fairly accurate or completely accurate, we decided to open them up to the community. So this is a limitless source for people to understand legal strategy, to teach legal strategy to law students, to show them how constitutional cases are evolved in the court. What is the process of legal reasoning which our courts follow? Because the output of a judge, I do believe, is only a tip of the iceberg in what emerges as the ultimate product of the courts. We are moving to paperless courts, courts where there would be no paper at all. In fact, as a matter of fact, all of us, 5 judges in the Constitution bench, didn't use a scrap of paper. We were completely in a digitized format, and we had the entire caseload on our laptops. We have adopted virtual courts for dealing with traffic offenses, the smaller summary offenses, so that the work which was done by, say, 24 judges can be done by a single judge monitoring a server. Now, all these initiatives are crucial. For instance, what do virtual courts do? A shopkeeper who keeps their shop open beyond the regular hours and has to pay a paltry fine to an inspector doesn't have to waste a day to attend a court to pay the fine. Or somebody who wants to contest a traffic ticket doesn't have to go to court to pay the fine. All that you have to do is that you log on to the server. If you want to pay the fine, you pay the fine, and the case is struck off the cause list of pending cases. So technology in that sense enables us to reach out and to change the profile of the law as standing somewhat apart from the rest of society.
नमस्कार, मैं हूं मानक गुप्ता। अगर आपको हमारा ये वीडियो पसंद आया हो तो इसे लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें, और हां, हमें सब्सक्राइब और फॉलो करना ना भूलें ताकि आप देश और दुनिया की कोई खबर मिस ना करें। तो जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ और देखते रहिए News 24।